So again, just more talking off the top of my head, but thinking about the nature of information. So the word information in itself breaks into lots of words. In, form, at, ion, and ion as opposed to I-off. So the living part of the binary from life to death to life to death. An ion, or an ion is the smallest mote of a light kind of idea. Or, yeah. So in form, as in bodied, at the ion, as in the living part, information. And in formation to formation is like, everything acting together in a formation, like an army battalion is a formation acting together. So information in itself is a interesting word on a good few levels. And then I conceive a lot, as I've been saying in videos lately, about the idea that time is a bubble and you can come from outside the bubble of time, timelessness, to inside the bubble of time, consciousness, and through the ingestion of various types of plant medicines or chemical drugs or whatever, people can have experiences which the perception of time, the brain functioning of the analytical mind, dividing things into the timeline frame by frame by frame, can be affected so that there can be an experience of being in no time or direct in the now or in the moment, in the mind of Mo, the moment. For the word meant in words is from ments, which is the word for mind type of thing. So the Mo mind, the Mu mind, the mind that's outside of time kind of thing. Or I presume through these, what people call Kundalini awakening or spiritual awakenings or that kind of thing, people can also, without having taken drugs or even meditating, or through near-death experiences, but certainly DMT as a natural occurring chemical in the brain causes one to travel outside of time type of thing. So this guy Donald Hoffman that I mentioned before as well in the last video, but he's a scientist guy and his thing was studying the ocular vision, the eyes and how they work in the brains and all that stuff. But essentially it's that what we're seeing is more of a projection than it is of seeing what's actually there. So we think we're physically seeing what's actually there, and to some degree it's actually a match between what's actually there and what we're perception kind of thing. Because if you're seeing things that aren't there but you're seeing them, that's an hallucination or an imagination kind of thing. And then the idea that we have a pituitary gland, which is the pine cone shaped space in the brain that's apparently got some sort of fluid liquid in it but is completely dark, and that's where the imagination happens as far as I gather. So the question there is, if it's completely dark, then how can we see images in our imagination? Because you need light to be able to see an image. And somebody posted a short little video, whatever it was, whenever it was, and it had an idea that the heart produces electricity and therefore it's the heart that's internally producing some light through which we see the inner vision of the third eye kind of idea. More interesting information in the inner world. And yeah, the Donald Hoffman guy also mentions a thing about the smallest thing. Yeah, the smallest thing was dust. The smallest thing was an atom, a molecule, a quark. Yeah, they get more and more words for the smallest things. But really, when you break it all down, the smallest thing there is information. The smallest type of information is either on or off, either light or dark. So that ion is the smallest mote of information. And time and our whole visual experience is based on light, and therefore that's another proof that this world that we're perceiving is to some degree a construct of the mind projection. Yeah, and so in embodiment we're inside of a construction, and now that we've invented the internet with its world wide webs and online games, we can see that a person can imagine themselves to be inside of a virtual world and completely think it's completely real. You can wear a haptic suit and actually feel all the sensations as if you're in, what's happening in the virtual world scenario, which is completely imaginary as far as the physical body is concerned. Yet the physical body can sense as if these things are actually happening. If you're having your neck chopped off or being shot by guns or whatever kind of thing it might be. Similarly, people who've lost a limb can think they're still feeling the limb. Similarly, I was curious about what's going on with painkillers and stuff like that. I've never really taken any in my life, but people take all these painkillers, and I was wondering how they actually work. And the only time I have taken painkillers is when you get those injections from the dentist when they're about to extract a tooth or something. I'm so curious, how does that work, that they give an injection and you're losing feeling, but only in one place in the body? How does that work? Type of thing, the local anesthetic. But apparently from what I hear, it's like a little condom is put over the receptors. So it's like a chemical condom. Chemical coating forms over the nerve endings of that part of the body's receptors in the brain. That's apparently how painkillers work. And the other thing was, I've got a lot of friends who've been psychotic or whatever sort of psychiatric cases, and they get put on various types of drugs and pills and injections. And I was curious about what does that stuff do? And at some stage, late 2020, I was thinking, maybe I will actually fucking hand myself into one of these psychiatric hospitals and get a certificate of them. We'll get checked out and say, this man does not think normally, does not experience the world normally. Really, this man should have a certificate and should be able to go to a party or an outdoor fire or whatever it is, and instead of people going, you're disturbing us with the way you think or the way you talk or you're challenging ideas, and me getting in trouble with people and getting beaten up and whatever, and people would be able to say, no, he's a mental case, don't be taking him too seriously, don't be getting upset by him. But anyway, it led me into thinking, well, no, obviously I'm not going to do that. I can't stand those institutions for one thing, and they might keep me there would be another fear. But so I came back to Scotland and was around visiting a friend of mine who does get all these injections and things by the state, and he actually died a couple of years ago in one of those institutions, and quite a lot of his friends think they kind of killed him in essence, type of thing, through their mishandling of him. But anyway, he offered me that he would give me some of the drugs that they've given him to slow his brain down so that he doesn't hear the voices and all that kind of stuff. And I was curious, well, how does that actually work? And again, same thing. It's a chemical coding on the brain receptors that receive the higher frequency information, frequencies, vibrations, whatever you want to call it, oscillations. And if you take these little pills or get these injections, then these chemicals go to that part of your brain that receives the higher mind information, and it breaks the connection. So the neurons aren't firing between this neuron and that neuron to download information of disincarnate beings or dead friends or the voice of God or whatever it might be. And then information again, information technology, the idea that there's a voice to skull technology, the idea that messages can be sent through the air from some technical device run by some people who can put thoughts into people's heads, which can sound very sci-fi crazy, and is the idea of targeted individuals are being targeted with experiments in sticking thoughts in people's heads. The idea itself is terrifying. The idea of itself is a meme which could cause people who are sensitive to think that they're being targeted, kind of stuff. And it's a similar idea to egregores put thoughts in people's heads, or demons put thoughts in people's heads, or ghosts put thoughts in people's heads. So, to simplify that, the television puts thoughts in people's heads, the radio puts thoughts in people's heads, and when we speak to people and tell people ideas, it's putting the thoughts in people's heads. Indeed, what I'm doing right now, if anyone is watching this video and listening to the words I'm saying, is I'm putting thoughts in your head, or your receiver. Your receiver is receiving information from my transmitter through the medium of the screens and the microphones and the speakers, kind of thing. All of this is information, kind of thing. So it's just a discourse in the word information. And then a little theme of the day, theme of the last few years, when I was doing so much research into looking into computers and technology and artificial intelligence and all these things, I spent ridiculously large amounts, sometimes 16, 18 hours a day, studying and listening to various professors and whatever else giving lectures and talks, whether at Google Talks or in whatever universities or in whatever their own teaching modalities were and whatever. And I absorbed a huge amount of information from all these people. And basically it was making me very high. It was making my brain speed up. It was having the same sort of effect that taking various sorts of chemical drugs might have. I don't do chemical drugs in particular, but I've tasted some sometimes just to see what the hell are they. I don't particularly like them, so I don't do them. But the technology has an effect that is similar to the taking of drugs. And at one stage, to come down out of the bouts of drinking spirits that I've done, which also can become quite addictive, I stayed with this old man that I knew for a week. He was just up the road from my son Paddy, and I was visiting, and so it was good to be able to stay somewhere nearby. And he had taken to playing a game called Civilization, which is a Sid Meier's Civilization game, which is the whole world, 6,000 years of history, and you go from being an individual in the Stone Age and creating your little country into your nation, into developing technology, into the modern day. And it gets up to modern warfare, and you fight against all these other civilizations and whoever wins. And it's a very accurate mapping in a game of what our actual evolution of civilization has been in the so-called historical real world kind of thing. But what I found with it is that in playing this game, the game, you know, to play it all the way through from year 0 to the year 2020 or whatever it might have been, it can take like 15 to 30 hours or whatever. And I found that you could play this game for like basically 30 hours without sleeping kind of thing. So that again is something that's not putting any physical substances into the brain, and yet is having an effect of stimulating the brain to the degree that the brain can overpower sleep without going crazy. It's interesting, isn't it? Today my friend has been working with the AI to build his website in the last few days. So he's just spent 3 or 4 or 5 days building a website fairly non-stop. And today he's rang me going, whoa, and I could tell straight away he's high as a kite. And it's not because he's taken some substance or anything else. It's not because he hasn't slept for 3 days. But he has not slept as much as he normally would because he's just been working so hard on the objective of building this website, and you know, he's very good at all that stuff. But again, it's another example of how using technology is actually a drug. But the drug, the cornucopia of drugs that are in our brain, the technology can release these internal drugs type of thing. And so then listening to certain types of information has various effects on the emotional body, on the vagus nerve, on our prefrontal cortex, on our moods type of thing. Just like listening to different types of music can affect or sustain a mood that you might be in. When you're angry and you listen to really heavy music, you can stay angry for a long time. When you're mellow and you stay listening to mellow music, you can stay mellow for a long time. And when you listen to really fearful information, truther information, for example, you can stay in a fearful, anxious state of mind for a very long time. And when you listen to this new age, all love and light and happiness, it can affect your mood to be more optimistic about the future of the world and whether there's a God or not and all of that kind of thing. If you listen to people talking about God, if you're religious and you listen to preachers, it's going to sustain you in that mood. So the idea of technology and information being a mood-altering substance, even though it's an invisible Aquarian age vibrations traveling through the air kind of thing. On to the thing of, therefore, information is a drug. I just go back to like 4 years ago, I realized that I was having information addiction. That even though I was listening to so much information all day long, I would go to sleep listening to still more information and fall asleep listening to something and have to re-listen to it the next day because I'd have missed half it type of thing. Like so addicted to learning kind of stuff. So information addiction, digital addiction, and the recognition that information itself is a drug. Therefore, the word addiction is the correct word, particularly with me realizing, well, addiction is the word addiction. Diction as in dictionary, diction as in speaking. Yeah. Anyway, so there's my circular thoughts that addiction. Diction is actually information, spoken word information. To dictate, to teach, and to dictate is all the same sort of thing, really. So information addiction is really ways of saying information. Hey, bye now. Do leave a message and do share this stuff, and do let's try and get loads of hits on the YouTube. Get more people watching my information, because I'm a good information dealer and my information is really high quality. My information will put you in a good mood and keep you there forever. Become addicted to my information. Kind of idea. Anyway, but seriously, that is what's going on. Yeah, our parents being addicted to, what was it, soap operas and that kind of thing, and really liking characters and disliking other characters, and he's the good guy, they're the bad guy, all informs our stories. And again, it's only really this year that it became so obvious that the word stories is actually the word store. It's multiple stores is stories, just like multiple stories of a high-rise block. I mean, it's multiple levels in one story. What's a high-rise residential building doing? It's storing people, storing memories, kind of thing. So the brain is transmitting, receiving, but it's also storing memories. And it's back to another one of the main concepts I've had going on for like 15 years or whatever, is that we have created in the image of our own creation. So that stuff they say about God, that God created us in his image. But we could also say that we're creating robots in our image. Or we can also say that robots can be created in the same way that we were created, kind of thing. Eventually even becoming flesh and blood creatures, even if it's nano dust making up their little things. Is that so different to what humans' organic thing is? And we can call us organic and say that they're inorganic. And at some time the two will merge. Because if the smart dust is true, then we're breathing in smart dust all the time anyway. Kind of thing. So stories, information. Stories store information. Information is light. Binary information is light and dark. Binary information is how our brain works, with the two halves of the brain, with judgment, with comparisons, and all that stuff. You see, the breeze is getting a bit much, so bye. Do share this if you find it fun. Bye now.